Okay, bring us up, please.
You're up, Commissioner.
All right, Bannock County Commissioners are now in session. First item on our agenda is Commissioners' report, invoices, and credit applications. Did you have any questions, John?
I have no questions.
I got some of mine answered yesterday. Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Commissioner's report, invoices, and credit applications as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next on our agenda we have payroll report. Any questions about it?
Nope.
Motion on it.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the payroll report as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Another invoice. And this one,
That one will be charged to all the departments on a basis of payroll. So
Okay.
we just need the blanket authorization.
What is it?
It's for the state insurance fund.
Okay.
It's payroll.
just anywhere.
Yeah, just anywhere. If I gave you the breakdown, it'd be a lot more pages. So it's just
Okay.
a summary of what we're paying.
Okay. And then we have one salary rate approval form.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the salary rate approval form as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Janie and team.
Cheney Coulter, event manager.
Vicki Jenkins.
So we have the Christmas in the Nighttime Skies coming back again. They are just asking for the fee waiver and the permission to use the B building for the Toys for Tots drive and the chili and the bonfire and the fireworks. Is there anything else you wanted to, anything new we're doing to it this year?
Everything's the same.
I know last year it was brought up the cleanup afterwards.
Pallets.
And yeah,
nails.
talking to the ops guys, they said all it was nails this time, and that's kind of just normal for us to pick up the nails, so that's all they said it was this time, was just the nails last year.
Good. No concerns?
No.
Anything, John?
No, you're gonna, where's this going on exactly? You go to the B building and then that's where you have like the
building.
chili and the hot dogs
Bonfires,
and,
yeah, the bonfires.
and then you get the Toys for Tots stuff?
Mm-hmm. And building B, and then we use that parking lot by building B, and then the fireworks go off down on the track.
In the parking lot?
On the
On
track.
the track is where
On the track?
fireworks-
Yeah.
Okay,
Down
and
below.
then, where's the bonfire at?
They're right there, building B and C in that parking area.
Must not be a very big bonfire.
Well, we have 3 really big ones, actually.
It's a lot
Okay.
of, all the pallets in the city, I think.
All right,
Yeah, just to
Well,
keep
looks-
everybody warm.
sounds good. Well, I plan to come up there, so
Good.
hopefully it'll be fun.
How many years you been doing it?
This is year 34 for me.
Wow. Okay.
It's
Speaks my age, doesn't it?
part of the Christmas season anymore. So, thank you. And the Toys for Tots, we appreciate all the effort there.
Awesome.
So, motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the request as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Matt Olson, Director of Bannock County Juvenile Justice. And have Todd Mager with me, who's our Chief Juvenile Probation Officer and oversees the operations at the village. So, each county juvenile justice department is required by the Department of Juvenile Corrections to complete an annual report that's called Form B. And as part of that requirement, we review the data with commissioners and request a signature on this form from the commissioners and the juvenile judge. So we're here today to review that information that is on Form B. I want to first start with Section 1. It's called supervised diversion. These are cases that are seen and managed and assessed through the village. There's a number of different pathways kids will end up coming to the village. One could be a law enforcement citation that goes directly to the village that they divert. Another one can be a law enforcement citation that is filed in court, but then is sent back to the village for monitoring and supervision on what we call a prevention stipulation. And then there's community referrals where the schools can refer people, law enforcement can refer people without a citation, and then families can refer themselves, and we've even had some referrals from the hospital there. So the village, the way it's structured now, really has allowed us to expand the number of people that can receive services and help without having to receive a citation or go through court. So you're going to see a bump up in some of these numbers just because of really the amount of referrals and people that come to the village seeking services. So the first thing we look at in Section 1 is a snapshot, which asks how many kids do you currently have on diversion. In Bannock County, as of September 30th, 2023, we had 242 kids that were on diversion as of that day that were actively being monitored and supervised. And you can see the breakdown of race and ethnicity in that first section. I think nothing too dramatic there in terms of racial and ethnic disparities. There are some. We'll see them a little bit more in probation numbers when I get to those. So they did, in Section B, they did a total of 387 diversion intakes. That's a slight increase from 2023 when they did 345 intakes in that unit, 341 in 2022. Our 17-year average of diversion intakes is 337 a year, so this is slightly above that. So again, I think certainly with the village being in operation now, we cast a wider net on who that intake and diversion unit at the village is able to help and support. In terms of age of those who were intakes at the village in 2024, you'll see that 11% of those were under age 10. Again, we don't see 10-year-olds in court much anymore, and one of the nice things about the village is the ability to get services to kids under 10. We don't have to wait until they get into more serious problems. They can start to put prevention and intervention services in place much earlier. And so it's good to see that number. The main category, of course, is we had 190 of those kids who were between the ages of 14 and 16, and that made up almost 50% of the kids that were served there at the village in terms of intakes. There were a total of 279 kids released from their diversion contracts and plans in 2024 from the village, and 84% of those were successful. And that's pretty consistent with where we've been over time. I mean, there's been times we've been up over 90%. There's multiple programs they operate, and if one program is struggling, that can maybe pull down those statistics a little bit. But overall, the village has been very successful at diverting kids from formal court processing or for more intensive probation services. Any questions about diversion services and what the village is providing to youth and families?
Any additions? I mean, I'm pretty proud of what you guys have done there at the village. I mean, like I said, the other day, I was in a board meeting and positive communication.
I think, Matt had mentioned that we're providing supervision and prevention contracts. I think the key there is we're helping these families get connected and receiving services during that time frame. And I feel like we've done a really good job of collaborating with community members. When we started, we were probably 15 to 20 weeks out to get kids into services, and we're able to do that through collaboration with different agencies and organizations in the community to get them in within about a week to 2 weeks. So I'm hoping to see in the future that, you know, these probation numbers go down. You know, we started in October, so we had been open for 2 months, 3 months, 3 months before, you know, this report started collecting data, so.
We'll go to section 2, which is probation services. So again, we look at a snapshot, how many kids are currently on probation as of September 30th, 2024, and there's a total of 331 youth that we had on probation as of that date. Slight decrease from the same period of time in 2023 when we had 333 kids on probation. Snapshot for county fiscal year 2022, we had 277. So, you know, we've had about 56 overall increase between 2022 and 2024. So what we are seeing is caseloads are increasing, and part of that is kids seem to be staying on probation a little bit longer as they have more intensive needs, and there's more high-risk youth being on probation. So we do have 8, this is section B under supervised probation. At the bottom of the page, we have 8 youth that we're currently supervising that have suspended placements to Department of Juvenile Corrections. So what that means is they've met the criteria to be placed in the Department of Juvenile Corrections at a facility like St. Anthony. That's a longer-term program and detention. And the goal is to keep those kids in our community and monitor them here. So we have 8 that we're currently monitoring there. That are here in our community that have suspended commitments. On the next page, in this next section, section C, we did have 185 probation intakes in county fiscal year 2024. 62% of those were male, 38% were female. And when you look at our age group, we did have 3 that were 10 or younger, but that number used to be higher. The majority of our kids also fall in that 14 to 16 age range. About 60% of our kids that come into probation on a new intake are between the ages of 14 to 16. And we did have 6 new cases that received suspended commitments to the Department of Juvenile Corrections. So in that county fiscal year, the judge ordered 6 new kids to be placed with Department of Juvenile Corrections, but suspended it so they could be supervised here. So there's 2 from last year that carried over, 6 new ones this year for a total of 8. We released 179 kids in probation. 95.5% of those that were released successfully. So that's a really good rate. I think our average is more really in that 90, 88, you know, sometimes 86. And so for us, that's a good percentage for county fiscal year 2024.
Could I ask you a question on that?
Mm-hmm.
When you say they were released successfully, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah. So in Bannock County, it's similar to other counties, there's a court decree that says you have to do and accomplish certain things. In addition to that, you have terms and conditions of probation that says you have to abide by all these rules. We utilize a case management process where we do a risk assessment that identifies risk behaviors to reoffend. So in addition to completing the things that are on your court-ordered items, the court-ordered decree, and following the rules on the probation terms, the expectation to be successfully released is you change behaviors in high-risk areas. And those high-risk areas are identified on that youth level of service inventory assessment. So for example, if substance abuse is a high-risk area, to be successfully released from probation, they have to demonstrate that they're not using illegal substances. So through drug testing and other things. If school behavior is a high-risk area, they have to be able to demonstrate that they've improved school behavior, they've improved attendance, academics, those types of things. So for each identified risk area on a case management plan, there is a goal with very specific means of achievement of what they're going to do to achieve that goal. And when they're achieving the goals on that case management plan, that ideally demonstrates behavior change and lowered risk to reoffend, then that's when we submit a release from probation. When kids don't complete the items on the court order, they're not following the rules of probation, they're not making behavior change, that's when they're unsuccessfully released. But I think our probation officers do a good job of working with families and kids to help them work through some of the challenges that they have, to deal with resistance that comes up at times, and to be patient and trying to get them to that process where they can have a successful release.
What is the range of time that someone is being monitored to determine whether or not they're successful or unsuccessful?
So low-risk kids, when Judge Call puts kids on probation, he almost always puts them on probation for the maximum period, which is 3 years.
3 years.
But he allows it to be reviewed at any time. So it really allows discretion with the probation officer working with the family to determine when a youth is ready for release. So for low-risk kids, you may see 3, 4, up to 6 months. With higher-risk kids, a few of them will go 3 years. They're getting new charges, and that time period's starting over. But I'd have to get the exact amount of kids in this, Commissioner, but my estimate would be most of our kids are somewhere between 10 to 14 months in terms of the period of time they're on probation.
And so when you say they're released successfully, does that mean during that entire time they have not done any of these behaviors or taken any of these actions?
No, in fact, we expect that they're going to test things. The goal of probation, much like the village, is once you identify these high-risk areas, to get families and youth into services that are going to help them develop the skills and competencies they need to make that behavior change. So oftentimes in the beginning, before those services are in place or while they're testing boundaries, they may still be engaging in delinquent behavior. To get off probation, we're looking for a sustained period of time where they are achieving those goals. So it could be, we use a level system. So they've got to be achieving those goals to move down levels. And so, most of those kids, some do fine and they're going to be released without any problem. But for those kids that struggle, that take that longer time on probation, we're looking for at least, several months of sustained behavior change.
Okay, thank you.
All right. During this county fiscal year, we did have 714 petitions filed in juvenile court. For us, that was a decrease from 2023 when we had 733 petitions. So a petition is a charging document that sends a youth to court. It may have more than one charge on it. For example, if a youth has a burglary, there may be 3 burglary charges on that petition. But a petition is one charging document. So 714 petitions filed in court 2024, 733 in 2023, and then 828 in 2022. So we are down pretty significantly from where we were in 2022. When you look at some of those offenses, we break down, well, how many of those offenses, and I'm going to skip down here to this crimes listed on petitions. We had 95 of those offenses that were listed on petitions were felonies, 496 were misdemeanors, and then 137 were status offenses, things like runaway, truancy. Truancy makes up the majority of those status offenses. We count tobacco and alcohol separately because many jurisdictions they treat tobacco and alcohol as an infraction. We still bring tobacco and alcohol under the Juvenile Corrections Act. So we did have 74 tobacco cases referred to court and 50 alcohol offenses. Now, some of these cases, particularly status offenses and tobacco and alcohol, if they're low-risk offenders not on probation, they will receive that prevention stipulation. They'll go back to the village where they'll receive these diversion services through the village to help get these families the support they need. One of the things, there are just a couple areas where we've seen increases. In terms of felony offenses, we have seen an increase from where we were at in 2022, in 2021, we had 79 felony offenses in juvenile court, and we're up to 95 in 2024. And it fluctuates between what we call felony persons versus felony property offenses. In terms of misdemeanor level offenses, one of the areas where we had seen a significant increase was what we call nuisance offenses, things like disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace. Saw a big increase in those once we came out of the pandemic and kids went back to school and were having behavior problems at school. But there was a significant reduction from our high of 176 to, in 2024, we had 79. So, I think we're working with the schools. Some of those kids are going to the village and getting prevention services instead of a citation, so that's helpful.
We did create that personal property prevention program too.
Yeah, that's right. One of the areas where we've had an increase is weapons charges. We usually averaged about 10 to 14 weapons charges a year, and we increased to 34 in 2024, and we had 28 in 2023. So these would be weapons on school property, minor possession of weapons, those types of offenses. So we are concerned about the number of weapons charges that are increasing. So
That's
and there-
per year, I think?
Per year.
Yeah.
On what, so general weapons?
This could be a knife at school. This, in some cases, could be minor in possession of a gun. If they were in possession of a gun and used it in a way that they were charged with an aggravated assault or aggravated battery, then that's going to go in the felony category, not necessarily this weapons category. These would be misdemeanor weapons charges. So it could be a knife at school. Could be a weapon that law enforcement found them with when they were doing searches, those types of things.
If they had a gun at school, that would be what?
Well, they could charge them with possession of a weapon on school property, or they could charge them with a felony, which would be minor in possession of a firearm. So, one of the areas where we've had a significant increase in the tobacco is in tobacco and alcohol. We were at a high of 141 cases referred to court for tobacco in 2022, and in 2024 there were 74. The village has created a, 2024 we were 74. The village has created a diversion pathway for tobacco and alcohol so we can get kids diverted instead of to that program instead of coming to court. And the school districts adjusted some of their policies, and I think that's helped as well. So
Vaping is considered tobacco.
yeah. So that kind of gives you an indication that obviously the majority of what we deal with is misdemeanors and status offenses, but we are seeing an increase in overall felonies being petitioned into court. So we did file 274 order to show cause hearings on youth, so that's when probation officers are filing formal probation violations in court. A lot of probation violations are handled informally without having to go to court, but we did file 274 probation violations with the court and 27 filings against parents for violations or contempt of court. So when a youth is on probation, parents have the court has jurisdiction over the parents as well. And so if they're not reporting violations or following through on what they need to, then they can be brought to court. So in terms of recidivism, recidivism is generally looked at as a 2-year time frame from the time they're released from probation, whether or not they were convicted of a new felony or misdemeanor level offense. We do break it down into 6, 12, and 24 months. So the cohort we look at is those kids that were released in fiscal year 2022. Of those kids, it was 172 kids, 15 reoffended with a new misdemeanor or felony level offense within 6 months of being released off probation. So that's 8.7%. 28 reoffended within 6 to 12 months. So if you reoffend at 6 months, you automatically go into the 6 to 12 month category, so it carries over. So that was 16.3%, and then 37 kids reoffended within 24 months out of that 172 for 21.5%. And that's about a 1 point decrease from where we were last year when we were at, I think, 22.4 or 22.5% last year. On the next page, what we look at is what percentage of those kids reoffended while on probation. I think, Commissioner, it's kind of maybe one of the questions you were asking about. 44 of those kids that were released from probation in 2022, they reoffended while they were on probation before they were released. And that was about 25.6. And that's a decrease from where we were in 2023 when it's 29.7. So again, if they're getting new charges, we're not releasing them until we see that sustained behavior change. In terms of restitution, we did collect $20,346 in restitution. That's money that goes back to victims for harm that's been caused. We had a total of 32 restitution contracts set to pay victims back, and we had 39 contracts pay off. So it's the year before we had more contracts than paying off. This was a year that we had more contracts paying off than we had set. We did have some large restitution cases this year, so our total amount of restitution ordered in 2024 was $77,000. A lot of that was on just a couple of cases, where one was, I think, over $25,000. So, but the majority of our kids, 78% of the kids and their families, make restitution payments as scheduled each month. So we take restitution seriously and focus on getting victims restored and getting them repaid where there's been a financial harm. We did 105 restitution investigations last year, and sent out 59 victim loss statements to victims. So if a victim says, yes, I have a loss, I want to submit a claim, we send them the victim loss statement, and then they can send it back, submitting that claim. So from a community service standpoint, we had 239 kids complete community service or work on community service during county fiscal year 2024. They completed a total of 3,610 hours. So it's up from last year, but one of the issues we have right now is our diversion kids who used to do community service. We really can't have them do community service with some of the changes in the statute. So there's not a condition for workman's compensation necessarily for some of those kids. So, but they are getting involved and engaged in other things in the community and really voluntarily doing that. So that just gives you an overview of those. We keep a lot of other data, and we come back to the commission. We'll provide other information in the future, but those are the data points that we're required to report on this Form B.
Questions? We appreciate all the work you do. I mean, it's pretty interesting. I mean, you guys face it every single day, but to hear the data and the stats and realize what's going on in our communities and I mean, there's challenges, but there's a lot of positive too.
There is, and these are numbers, but every one of these numbers represent people, and we feel like we have incredible staff. They're the ones sitting down, meeting with these families, trying to resolve problems, trying to get them connected, dealing with crisis, making judgments every day on which kids can be diverted or which kids need to come to court and which kids need to go to detention and those types of things. And our staff does an excellent job. We have an excellent judge that works very well with us, and we work well with community partners. So, we feel fortunate to have a community of stakeholders and within our own department, great staff that really contribute to these successes. So,
Thank you. Motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the report as presented.
For the motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Commissioner, can I have Judge Call signed one this morning? If I could have you sign this one, then we'll have it.
We can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, looks like the assessor and team.
Good morning. I'm Nita Jaimes, Bannock County Assessor, and I have with me Candace Grun, our lead in motor vehicle, in case you have questions about the processes that I don't have an answer for. So we're here today to ask you to go over our memorandum agreements with the state of Idaho's Park and Recreation. They are moving to a new system, a new computer system they're upgrading, so they're asking all their vendors to sign a new memorandum agreement, and we being one of their vendors, and we would like to continue to be one of their vendors. I passed it by our legal department, and the only problem he had with it was on page 2 in section 6. I think it's about the 4th paragraph down. He felt like that was an indemnity, bordering on an indemnity agreement, and so we asked the state to cross it out, which they willingly did.
Okay.
And so we took that out. I have visited with Christy also about the financial portion of it. Brian has looked at this again after they took that out, and he was fine with it. And then I visited with Christy about how we're going to continue the financial portion of it. And in here, it actually states we can continue to do the process like we've been doing. So she didn't have any issues either.
Okay, any concerns? Here's your opportunity to speak up. Okay.
They are going to train us on their new system in January. So there'll be a little portion of time where we won't be able to sell the stickers because they're going to be just training us on them.
Yeah.
But then we'll move forward and get it done.
And just the variety of stickers, just so that if somebody's listening and they want to come in, review them, please.
Oh, so the decals and stickers that would be sold would be all of the parks and recreation options. So it would be snowmobiles for the winter season, park and skis for our cross-country skiers. It also includes the boat, HIN assignments, and decals for the Coast Guard. Off-highway vehicles, so your motorbikes, four-wheelers, UTVs, and those units. And trying to run down them all in my head. I think that's it. So.
Invasive species.
Oh, invasive.
I got
species.
cussed out last year because I've been smelling that in because I didn't know we
Yes.
did it over here. That's why I wanted to
Yeah,
say it.
sorry.
Is
Yes.
that these are available.
Correct, and for residents and non-residents, yes.
Okay. I remembered. Any questions, John?
How much does it cost to get a snowmobile sticker if you're a resident?
That is a very good question. I don't have that number. It's like
How much?
$45, $50.
Okay, we have snowmobile expert here.
Yes, and there is a 2-year option on the snowmobiles and the off-highway vehicles as well.
So all of these, you have to get these stickers, I guess, to use these recreational vehicles, boats, ATVs, snowmobiles, etc. And then you get a small fee. On top of that money, or is that included in the, do you know, Kyle, is that included in the $45, the fee?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the final cost. Yeah.
all right, thanks.
Yes.
Motion.
What are we trying to do, just approve this?
Approve the memorandum with the state
Okay, yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the memorandum as presented.
park. You have a motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm Burmester, Bannock County Public Works Director. Just here before you guys today for a little bit of an update on what's going on with Public Works. For on Road and Bridge, we're just finishing up the fairgrounds demo of the buildings. We thought we were pretty much done, and they found a little bit of some footers left when they were doing some cleanup, so we had to dig a couple of them out and found a couple 55-gallon drums full of rocks. I don't know what that was for, and just a few weird things, but we've got all that cleaned up, and they're just doing the kind of the dirt work with a little bit of sod right now, cleaning that up. They'll have that done today, so then we're planning, Daniel and I, doing a little bit of a survey on it, probably first of the week,
Okay,
next week, but things going
thank you.
good there.
That's good.
We're still mixing in our salt and sand. We normally mix most of it down in Virginia where our sand pile is, and then we distribute it to all the areas. We've got all the south end done, so with Ingham, Lava, and McCammon is where we start. And we're currently mixing in Pocatello right now, trying to get that shed full. So we're hauling sand from Virginia to Pocatello and mixing that way. Switching equipment over to winter, it's kind of a hard thing. You switch it too quick, and if you have good weather, you're getting rid of equipment that could be doing other things. So we try to hold off as long as we can, and so we can keep hauling and doing road work and whatever we need to do. So we have about half of our dump trucks switched over to winter, and half of our graders switched over to winter, and we're going to slowly just keep switching them over and see how winter comes.
What do you do with the grader for the switch?
So graders get a wing added onto them. They put some chains on the back, and then the wing on the side is pretty much the only thing you have to do to them.
Okay.
The trucks get their beds taken off and sanders put on and their blades put on, but we've been removing the old guardrail for our guardrail projects. We had to remove quite a bit on the old highway right there by McCammon, by that state shed, Harkness area. There was a lot of old guardrail through there that they're thinking 50 to 70 years old. We're getting that all cleared up. We got the shoulders all prepped. The guardrail company came in. They kind of got snowed out a little bit on buckskin. Then they found out they had a bunch of the wrong parts. So they'll be looking at starting. They haven't did any new yet, but they're going to be hopefully next week starting again. But
And is the weather, how does that affect that?
it doesn't affect a lot of what they're doing with pounding the posts and stuff like that. The only issue they had a little bit there is the buckskin one is on a steep incline, and so they were worried if it just kept snowing that it'd get slick, and they'd have worries with the traveling public and stuff. They didn't want to get hit by somebody and stuff, so it kind of slowed them off. But I don't think freeze, frost, and it'd just have to be a lot of snow, but as long as they can clean that out, so they use like a string line to get all that straight. As long as that doesn't interrupt that, they're fine to go. So we're hoping we can still get it all done this fall.
Good.
So.
Good.
And we have a culvert that's a large culvert that's on the Marsh Creek. It's on Ford Road. It's clear down south, almost by the Independent District, but it's kind of caving in, but it's a 6-foot culvert. We have the culvert purchased already. We're just hoping to get that put in. It's been kind of weird with the snow. Usually you can wait for fall and you have limited water and makes it easy. Well, it's still flowing up almost as much as it did in the summer. So the springs must be coming up around the county.
I drove to McCammon on the back roads the other day. I mean, the Portland's running pretty good
So
this time of year.
Even the bridge inspects that the state does, they kind of called and asked what's going on. Is something different? Because they usually inspect bridges in the fall when they can see all the pillars and everything, and they're having trouble doing their inspects. But some of it throughout the summer was because of the water rights and having to send more water down. But right now, I don't know. I can see it with some of the port enough, but some of these spring creeks that are run off of springs and stuff, they're still running really high. So maybe that's a good sign that getting a little more aquifer water.
Yeah.
And then kind of just to talk a little bit about the new dedicated roads. We've been kind of in the last few years have been in quite a change for expansion of the county. In the last 10 years, we've had 44 new roads created. It's about 17 miles. Just there's not as many miles just for the fact that they're all subdivisions, so there's a lot of little short roads and stuff like that, but there's been 44 new roads taken on by the county. The last couple years is most of them roads. The last 3 years, I'd say, was like 90% of them roads. So most of it's just been in the last 3 years. If you take the 10 years before, we've come up about a 240% in new roads from the previous 10 years. So it's quite a change, and that, like I say, it creates more waste for the landfill. It creates more permitting processes, more building going on, road maintenance, winter maintenance. So it's been kind of
Well, just winter maintenance. I mean, to go down the highway and plow, I mean, you can just keep going. But if you're in a subdivision it's not even comparable.
Yeah, it takes a lot longer. We tried to, I have some of my staff in Coeur d'Alene this week on some on a road conference, and I asked them if they would, one of the parts of their conference would be to discuss employee per road mile. And it's a hard one to determine because of some of the amounts of traffic and widths and everything, but Buddy let me know that their average is 16, an employee for every 16 miles. We have, with ours, we're doing about 23 miles per employee. So we're a little over what the average is, miles that we have per employee. One thing we did to try to cope with that is, so it also on the 10 years, I looked back and we had 21 employees that were roads, and that's counting the manager and his assistant operations and anybody that's operating on roads, not weed or anything like that. But we had 21 and we have 21 today, but that was 10 years ago we had 21. So we're at the same amount of employees. I think we've gained a lot in efficiencies through new equipment. I appreciate the help on getting new equipment. One thing I noticed in the last 10 years, we had there's trucks that didn't have sanders, and in the 19 years I worked here, when I started, we used to have a truck with a plow, and he would go plow a route, and then you'd have a sander come around and sand behind. It wasn't very efficient, and back then you didn't have to sand. We didn't sand as much, but as people want more, we're sanding. They used to just sand stop signs and steep curves and hills. Now we sand everything. It's not a bare road policy, but we try to do quite a bit of service on the roads in the winter. So I think what helped is we've got almost all of our trucks with a sander. We only have one that doesn't have a sander right now, so that now when they go and do their route, you don't have to have somebody come right in behind them. You do with the graders, but not with the trucks anymore. So that's helped. The two of the new trucks that we're still waiting on, they tell us they're supposed to be here every end of the week. We did get the option of putting wings on them. So we're hoping that like some of the stuff like Old Highway and some of them longer stretches, they'll have a wing so that sometimes if you have real heavy snow, you have to do a double round. So we're hoping that this will save us some time, and we're going to try them out and see if that's kind of a new thing of maybe wanting to go that direction on some of our trucks. That might help.
Well, I'm talking about your road miles and stuff. I mean, comparing us to some of the other low-lying counties, they're just, I mean, I live in Ingham, and above me, right there at Pebble, you look at all the subdivisions and all the road miles that have gone in there, and you have to sand, and you have to, I mean, the amount of snow that they get, I mean, Pebble's already got snow, I mean, up there this year, and the lower levels haven't got anything, so.
Yeah, we've had plows out 2 or 3 times already this year in the higher stuff, Meat Creek, Buckskin.
I saw one this morning.
You said? Yeah, so yeah, we have quite a difference in elevation, and sometimes it can be raining in Pocatello and you're getting a foot of snow up Buckskin. So it's a beautiful place we live, but we get to deal with snow. That was kind of on the resources. Our equipment, I think we've, like I said, got better efficiencies with the newer equipment, more horsepower, stuff like that. But we haven't really like added more equipment in the last 10 years. Overtime, currently we have about 42,000 in overtime for winter and summer overtime. 10 years ago, we had 38,000 in overtime. So we've been trying to be really efficient with the overtime. It looks like we're using it faster, but I took kind of and this is not exact numbers, but I kind of took on the higher end of average employee with their benefits, you know, in 2014 and then today currently. And just to give you a little bit of an idea that with that current funding, we 10 years ago we would have 1,372 hours that we could use for overtime because it's time and a half with the benefits. And what we're budgeted for now is 1,093 hours using the same kind of formula on both years. So, you know, we're losing hours of overtime, but we're still trying to keep up. So I think they're doing a really good job and trying to be as efficient as they
Well,
can.
and I think that what you just stated a minute ago too, when you put a sander on a truck and you, instead of running 2 trucks around there and stuff, same road mileage, your efficiency has gone up a whole bunch.
So we'll see what the future brings. We probably have 4 or 5 subdivisions right now that are in the process. So there'll be more coming. But all I had, do you have any questions for me?
You said that you guys are doing 23 miles per employee, and what was who was doing the 16 miles per employee? What was that number from?
They took, he sent me an email, he took a bunch of the road districts, they're
Who
having
is
it's
Buddy.
Buddy, he's at a conference with a bunch of the road districts and counties. So he just, in that meeting, he listed them off, and just a bunch of them, the local, it's just for here in Idaho, but it is all
So
of them.
this 16 is the average for road districts in Idaho?
Mhm.
Okay.
More in the rural setting, because it is a difference when you can, like you say, go straight down a road and cruise along. You can get a lot more done.
Mhm.
So some have a lot higher, but they're at urban kind of areas. But
Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for coming by. All right, Emma.
Good morning, Commission. Emma Iannacone, Public Information Officer, here to present the reimbursement form for my EMAC deployment to North Carolina. This is the form that we would present to the state of Idaho to start the process of getting reimbursed for all of the costs of my deployment.
Okay. And I've looked through it. You got any questions?
Nope.
And just to state, we're applying for $7,575.12 in reimbursement, basically coming from North Carolina. In the long run of things. It'll be interesting to see the process
Yes.
and what happens here. But you were not available a week ago when we had the others here. I just want to tell you thank you very much for going and representing Bannock County and Idaho in a very positive manner. You actually put out the post on it.
Yeah.
But there was a quote by John. I don't know if you remember what you had stated.
Well, I read it this morning, so I remembered it then.
Would you repeat that again?
If I could remember it, I would, but I can't remember what I said.
You-
Something about it's good that we're doing this, and someday we'll need help out here. Now we have experienced people that can run this operation when it someday will come here, so
Yeah.
something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
The
what I
quote in the
remember.
paper's better.
That's what I remember too. But it was positive. I mean, that we're grateful for that we had the opportunity to send people out and then the experience that y'all gained.
Yeah.
And it'll be it'll come back to the county in triple,
Yeah.
I believe. Not that we want a disaster or anything, but.
Of course.
But we want to have the understanding and the knowledge of being able to take care of our people too.
Yeah.
So, do you have any questions about this reimbursement?
No.
Okay?
I'd just like to thank the commissioners as well as the Office of Emergency Management and our auditing office for their help and support in getting me out there, and all of the work that it's taken on my return to get these forms and reimbursements and everything completed. I would not have been able to do any of this without everyone's support. I really appreciate Christy and Mandy's help completing these forms so that we can get the ball rolling and done.
We agree 100%.
Mhm. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Did we get a motion on that?
I don't think so.
What you doing?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the EMAC reimbursement form as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Shanda?
Good morning, Commissioners. Shanda Crystal, Chief Procurement Officer, and I have with me here.
Dan Kendall, Facilities Director.
We have a couple items before the board today. The first one I'd like to start with is a recommendation to award the Exhibit Hall electrical invitation to bid. We went out to bid for this project and we received one back in. It has been reviewed and it has found that it meets all the mandatory requirements. We would like to recommend at this time that the Exhibit Hall electrical invitation to bid be awarded to Razor Electric LLC for $144,200.
Questions?
Nope.
Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve awarding of this contract as requested.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
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 I do have a letter prepared for you.
Thank you.
And very similar to the ceiling project, since we only received one bid, we will ask for a little additional information. It does currently fit within our approved budget, as well as an independent cost estimate. So we do feel confident moving forward with this, but we'll just ask for a little bit of details just to finalize before the contract comes before the board. The second item I have before the board is a potential signature on a contract with Pro Builders. This is in regards to the Tactical Training Center out at the Detention Center. They were awarded the bid and have submitted all of the appropriate documents for the ARPA funding. And I would like to ask that the contract be signed for Pro Builders in the contract amount of $584,936.
Questions? A motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve awarding this contract for the Tactical Training Center project to Pro Builders as requested.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
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 We are working on scheduling a kickoff meeting for that project, and there to discuss some of the potential cost-saving measures. Any of those will come back before the board in a change order if they're found to be appropriate for this project.
I'll flip this chair over, it will be a spectacle on camera.
The last item I have before the board is the procurement updates. Just due to timing, this looks a little behind, but the top ones for road and bridge, the backhoe, the wheel loader, and the road grader, they have all been before the board for signature. Those review for the Sourcewell piggybacks have been complete. It's just a little bit due to the timing that I had to submit this, but they are all good to go. If we'll drop down to the active bids for the detention center, the diesel generator, that was posted on Tuesday, and it'll post again next week before we move forward. This one we have structured a little different, a little more similar to the emergency management tree reduction, fuel reduction projects, where we require mandatory participation in the pre-bid meeting. Discussing with Levi, we felt that that was appropriate, where they have to come into an enclosed facility that they can't have general access to at any time of day. And so we do have 2 of those schedules. That is best practice when doing a mandatory, that we have 2 different times that people can attend. We picked 2 different weeks 2 different days of the weeks and 2 different times, just to try to mix it up as best we could for those contractors and allow them to come. But we do feel it's imperative that they see the space that they need to be working in and be aware of some of the extra security that needs to happen when working out at the detention center. But that project is on schedule and is moving forward. The plumbing and the HVAC for the exhibit hall will be opened here in about 5 minutes. And the ones we just closed on Tuesday and awarded for the fire suppression and ceiling for the exhibit hall, those contracts have been sent to those companies for review and signature. A few of them I already have some of the documentation for ARPA, but they'll gather up their bonds and insurance, the rest of it, and get it submitted back, and then we'll get on and get the contract signed. And that is all I have for the board, unless they have any other questions for me.
Not really for you. I just looked at the bottom when the county fleet purchases. Have you heard anything about that at all?
I have not touched base with
Buddy?
But yeah,
Okay.
to see exactly where those are. My last conversation was that, right, they were moving forward and asking Smiths to get those ordered and to come. But
Okay, any questions, John?
Nope.
All right, thank you. All right, Christie.
Christy Davenport, Management Assistant. I have received or been contacted by 2 people who are interested in purchasing 2 of the properties that we put up for auction at the tax sale last week. One is RPR PIN 1006700. This is a small pie-shaped parcel at the backside of another person's parcel that would be convenient for them to purchase and go ahead and she's already spoken with Anita, and they're talking about combining the parcels so they're just one piece. And she's offered $50 for that 0.019 acre. So I've
I
told
could ask
both
about that a second real quick. This is, as I'm reading this, it looks like this parcel is just behind her property
right,
that she owns.
yeah,
Okay.
on the backside.
Yep.
She has spoken with Anita about what would be a reasonable price, and this is what they've come up with. I have told both of these ladies that have offered that the process is for me to come to you and present their bid, and then you can either accept or counter, and I would let them know what that is. So they're aware of the process.
Any comments, questions?
Nope, not on that one.
Okay, do you want me to present the second? Mark and Cindy Heisel. They're interested in purchasing parcel number RPR PCPP 114701. It's a narrow strip that runs adjacent to the backside of their property, and they would like to offer $500 for that property.
I don't have any problems with it.
Okay, well, let's see here if I can get these parcel numbers right. Hold on just a second. So, okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the offers on the 2 parcels, RPR PIN 1006700 for $50 and RPRPC PP 114701 for $500.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 I will let them know, and I'll get the quitclaim deeds ready for you to sign next week.
Okay. We'll be at recess for